Ireland is a land that has it all. Incredible scenery with miles of open spaces that are crisscrossed with ancient tracks and remote wild trails. It's a walker's paradise. It's a land of history, folklore and legends that date back thousands of years, the remains of which are still here in the landscape to be seen and experienced by all. From early monastic settlements to remote scholarly islands, from ancient stone circles to pre-Christian communities. It's a land of writers, musicians and poets. From the wild Atlantic Way to wild landscapes. From the coastal villages and towns that resonate with music and song to the quiet, peaceful trails in the mountain and lakeside areas. Ireland has it all.
My career as a journalist has taken me on many adventures, reporting on events that have changed history. I'm used to chasing stories, but I didn't often get the time to indulge my passion for walking with my interest in the history and beauty of our island. This week, I'm delighted to walk in Tipperary along part of St. Declan's Way Pilgrim Trail. My name is Tommie Gorman, and this is my Tracks and Trails. I'm in County Tipperary. I started in Cahir, walking a stretch of St. Declan's Way, following the Suir River, using a mix of off-road trails and small country roads. I get to Goaten Bridge, where I meet some more of the locals.
Oh, hello.
The next part of the journey takes me off-road once more and up into the Knockmealdowns. Located on the Tipperary-Waterford border, the mountain range is an important habitat for flora and fauna. It's the site of a landmark moment in Irish history and politics. With rain showers threatening, I head for shelter in the forest to meet Janice Fuller from Quilcha. She'll be able to tell me about the importance of the surrounding habitat and the impact it has on our environment for now and the future.
How are you?
Delighted to see you.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
So how would you describe this place?
So this particular forest is really a kind of a working forest, and there's a mix of conifer species here that are good for timber. But there's other forests on the Quilcha estate, I suppose, that would have more value for biodiversity and nature, and others that would be important from a climate point of view, although they probably all have a role for climate, and then others that are just fantastic for recreation.
So what's your background?
So I'm a botanist by training, studying plants, and I work as an ecologist, a forest ecologist for Quilcha. Quilcha manages 20% of its estate for biodiversity and nature. That's 90,000 hectares. So they need ecologists to help kind of develop biodiversity plans or plans for how to manage those areas. And so that's what I do, is I help manage those biodiversity areas.
Given what's happening to the climate and climate change, is there a whole new interest in your field now?
Absolutely, absolutely. I suppose there's a kind of a new strategy in the company to increase the areas managed for nature from 20% to 30%. So that's another 44,000 hectares that we're actively looking for by the end of 2025, and that'll obviously have benefits for climate as well, because there's huge links between nature and climate. But they're also working on projects that are specifically targeted at climate, looking at planting new forests. We need new forests, and I think the target is about 100,000 hectares.
So is it a new phase for Quilcha then?
It is totally, and it's really looking at what Quilcha, the whole estate can deliver. Obviously, they can deliver for wood, and we need a timber industry in Ireland. We need wood for kind of Irish houses and timber products and all the rest of it. But we also we're in a climate crisis, we need to respond to that, and a biodiversity crisis, and forests can be absolutely fantastic for nature. And they're also fantastic places for people. So we just need to balance all of those things across the whole estate. That's kind of the idea, and do more.
Janice, Quilcha is lucky to have you. I could stay all day, but I've got a rendezvous further up the hill at the Lynch Memorial, so all the best.
Brilliant. Lovely to meet you. Bye.
With the rain passing and the views beginning to open up in the autumn sunshine, I continue my route further up the mountain to a place I've heard so much about. To get his take on an important part of Ireland's past that happened here on this very mountainside, I'm joined by local historian John G. O'Dwyer.
You're at the appointed spot. Here's
I
the
am
man I'm
indeed,
looking forward to
absolutely.
see.
There you am.
How you doing?
Yeah, great, it's great. Welcome to this part of Tipperary, even though we're nearly in County Waterford here. But you're still safely in Tipperary.
One of the reasons I was really looking forward to meeting you is because you have the local knowledge, the expert knowledge about Liam Lynch, one of the main figures in the Civil War.
He was Chief of Staff of the IRA and during the Civil War. On the last day of his life, Lynch was staying in a house further down the mountain here, and he was seen as a safe house. But during the night, scouts reported that there was Free State soldiers approaching. And then later on, the reporter seemed to be heading for this house. So escape was vital. Lynch and his companions, who were the executive of the IRA Army Council, they tried to escape. So what happens then is that they were going up to a deep ravine, but eventually the stream became much shallower. It emerged out of the ravine and it became a very, very small stream like that. And as you can see, Tommy, there would be no cover whatsoever from being a stream like that. So now they're in open terrain and there are bullets whizzing all around them. It is time to retreat. That's all they can do. And they race on up the mountain and they think they're getting away. And then one single shot rings out on its own. And Lynch turns to his companions and he says, "My God, lads, I'm hit." And he falls to the ground. His companions come in around him and of course, naturally enough, they try to save him. But the Free State soldiers are closing in, so he says, "Leave me down, you go, lads." And then the Free State soldiers arrived up. And the first man that arrived up and looked at him, and Lynch was tall and bespectacled, but he was the second most famous man who was bespectacled then, because the tall bespectacled man then was who at that stage that everybody knew on the Republican side?
De Valera.
De Valera. So they said they thought it was really an even bigger prize. "We've got Dev." And they were jumping up and down. And then Clancy arrived. He knew Dev. And he says, "This isn't Dev. You're not Dev. Who are you?" And Lynch said, "I am the Commander-in-Chief of the Irish Republican Army. Please get me a doctor and a priest, for I am dying." And that's the pathos, the bittersweet, shot by his own companions of the War of Independence.
You have such fascinating detail on the story, but I'd love to see the monument. Will you bring me to it?
You can't miss that, and it's only 400 yards away. Let's go. Now, you were expecting maybe a nice small monument, something like that. But in fact, when we turn around here in Tipperary, when we do a monument, we do a monument. No less a full Celtic round tower.
It is extraordinary. Yeah. Look at the size of it. So he was mortally wounded on this very spot. Is it fair to say that effectively the Civil War ended here because it was officially over within a month?
The Civil War never ended. There was never a declaration of an end of hostilities. It was simply, at the moment, this is not an appropriate time to fight. But in effect, yes, the Civil War was completely over at that stage. And the simple fact was that people simply wanted peace.
I could stay talking to you all day because you know so much and it's fascinating and it's been a privilege to meet you. But I have more walking to do, so I'm going to say my goodbyes.
It's great to be able to bring history to life like this. I think we both love it.
And we'll be in touch.
We will indeed.
Farewell to Tipperary, said the gallantry mountain boy.
Our Civil War lasted less than a year, but there were 1,500 people killed during it.
Neighbour killing neighbour, brother fighting brother, people who had fought on the same side, then enemies. But afterwards, 1923, the government at the time gave an amnesty to its people. Next year, there was an amnesty granted to the other side. And that was it. That was closure of a sort. And then they put their energy and their arguments into politics. And that's the history of the foundation of our state. Fascinating.
The final ascent is a short trek off-road and takes me further into the mountain range. With St Declan's Way remaining faithful to the ancient highways, you are treated to spectacular views and reminders of Ireland's ancient past.
That could be a scene from the Highlands, those dark, heathery-like colours. And look beyond it then, fertile valley. When we were in Our Lady's Abbey, we saw evidence of Reformation times, Cromwellian times, and now more history here. This is just a magnificent sight, and what a vantage point here.
A short descent takes me back onto steadier ground and a road that carries on through the mountains and marks the end of my route along St Declan's Way.
My interest in history was fired up 50 years ago in the Leaving Cert cycle in Summerhill College in Sligo. I can remember our teacher Michael McGowan telling us about Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, the Queen's favourite, who came here during the 9 Years' War to try to combat O'Neill and O'Donnell and their allies. He had one major victory, the sacking of Cahir Castle, and we were in that very castle. Then, in that same town in Cahir, we saw evidence of that period in our history, the First World War, the Irishmen who went to fight, and also the tricolour, the proclamation, 1916. Then we came here, and I saw where Liam Lynch was killed by fellow Irishmen. This is where he died, and effectively our civil war ended. To see so much history in the course of these few days, I found it very, very moving. I found it remarkable. But something else that struck me looking round here, this is a completely different landscape to what I'm used to in the west of Ireland, but it is drop-dead gorgeous. And after these few days, I'm just energised by what's happening in our country, and I also feel very privileged to have seen the country in this light. And I'll take these memories with me, and they'll rest with me for a very long time.
If you enjoy the show, follow us on social and tell us your story. We'd love to hear about your tracks and trails, especially if it's influenced you in any way. Has it got you out walking? What were the benefits? Your feedback could inspire our next show.